What is up, Profitable Stylist? Here we go this week. We've got a discussion topic to go over, and it's about hair extensions. Does it cause damage? And if it does, what kind of damage? And if it doesn't, why not? So this is the topic that we've got to go with. Good morning, Bernard. How are you this morning?
Oh man, that's a hot topic. Do hair extensions damage hair? That's, to me, it's when you've been selling for so many years, one of the funniest things to me is when you're doing a consultation and you already know what the clients are thinking because you've done this so many times, and they've called, they made the appointment, they're coming in for a consultation, and during the consultation, one of the first questions, first of all, you're asking them, what do you want? Have you ever done this before? What do you? And they're like, well, I want to make my hair down to here, but are hair extensions damaging? And for me, I have got so many. I like to think in my head, if I say yes, what would you do? If I said no, what would you do? If I said no, would you believe me? What do you already think? And I know all of these thoughts going on inside their head already. And what I want to say is, does it matter? You think they are. That's why you ask the question. You're here and you want longer hair. Do you care? Do you want me to say, because you already think they're damaging. I can tell by the way you asked. You think they're damaging. So I sometimes just want to go, yeah, but you should do it anyway. And they probably would. But then I know also, if I go, I think I know what they expect me to say is like, oh no. So like such a liar, like they're gonna try to catch me. They're like, I know they're damaging. Let me see what he says. And so, right, you know what I'm saying? That's what I think in their mind. They're thinking, and I'm gonna say no and defend my answer, but look like a liar. Don't you think that's what most people think?
I think it's the reassurance that they're like, it isn't damaging, right? And then you're supposed to say like, oh no, it's not that damaging because it'll be okay.
Right.
And they're looking for the justification to do something to themselves, right? That's the difference.
So I'm torn when I'm asked the question, because I know that most people have questions out of lack of information. It sounds like a terrible word to say the word ignorance, but ignorant, like we're all ignorant of certain topics, ignorant just
right.
to know something. And I think it's the lack of information about how hair extensions really work. First of all, they usually don't even really know how they're applied or why or how or where the damage comes from.
Well, you want to hear my dumb answer?
Oh, please. Yeah. Go ahead.
So because I literally just went through this, and I want to try to get John on here so we can interview him, because we just did a corrective on one of his clients who had a bad haircut.
Okay.
So she says, so he asked me to come in to help him do the consultation to see if there's even anything we could do about this haircut. So, and then that was the first amongst the first questions she asked was, she said, how damaging are hair extensions? Not are they?
Yeah,
she said, how damaging?
Assumptive close.
And so my response was, I just crack a little smile and I go, any more damage than your hair is right now, or you want it worse? Because we can control the level of damage. And she's like, I don't want any. I go, then why do they have to be? She goes, oh, I'm just asking. I go, well, according to Google, you have cancer. According to YouTube,
you're gonna die.
Right. And it's literally what I said to her. According to Google, you have cancer. According to YouTube, as long as you do this, which you should never do, by the way, I don't know why that exists, you'll avoid all damage magically, and you'll have rainbows coming out of your butt, and she started laughing. I'm like, listen, what is your concern? What is your problem? I go, like, your hair is so screwed up right now. How much worse are you really going to be?
The amount of let me just answer the question real quick. No, hair extensions do not have to be damaging if they're done correctly. A good product from a good company done correctly by a good hairdresser. Hair extensions can be helpful like the opposite of damage. That's the answer that RJ might want to take a little short of and put somewhere, that no, hair extensions are not damaging. But I love where you just went with that, because it's like, how damaging are hair extensions? Well, a lot less damaging than your hair looks like right now. I mean, even if hair extensions were damaging, they're going to be on the scale. They're going to be helpful in your hair.
In your situation, yeah, no, you need Jesus. You need an exorcism is what you need, you know.
Oh my goodness. I mean, there are even lower levels than Jesus that would help some people. That's my point, is that some people's hair is so gone and fried. And when they're asking about hair extensions being damaging, they did not ask the colorist that when they went to get color or bleach, or even understand that they probably shouldn't be continuing to get this overlapping technique that is frying bands of hair off. And they don't even ask that question. Why do people not ask that question, Eddie?
For hair color is because that's just standard, right?
Extensions, I think, are getting there in the world.
And there's leave-in. See, the use of leave-in conditioners is such a Band-Aid fix. You never truly feel it or see it. That's one of the issues. But here's something I discovered from this madam when I was doing like yesterday, as I was putting in the extensions on her. This is what I discovered. Her concern wasn't physical damage to her hair. Her concern was more thermal damage to her hair color and psychological damage to
mental.
Yeah, to her social group, amongst her social group. So everybody in her social group was aware that her hair got jacked up. She got a really bad haircut. Everybody that knows her, it's been this whole thing, right? It's this major thing. And of course, in the next 2 weeks, she has this major party that she needs to attend. And so everybody's like, ooh, how does she look? How does she look? How bad is her hair, right? So now her concern is, how is she going to explain that all of a sudden her hair is nice? And
the entertainment in her group.
She's the entertainment of her group, right? You always got to have the one, that's the leader of the pack. So her thing is more of a psychological damage and a thermal damage issue. The thermal damage is, before the haircut got messed up, whoever did her color before fried her hair. So she has spent the better half of the past year and a half getting her hair in a better condition overall through the hair color service, right? Mm-hmm. So now she's concerned if this is going to mess up the hair color. So I told her the stylist that she's going to see is really good. It's not going to get messed up. As far as, how are you going to explain all of a sudden your hair was short, messed up, now it's long again? I told her, I said, you rubbed some chia pet seeds on your head and then you watered it. And for those of you who don't know what a pet rock or a chia pet is, you're too young, you got to go Google that.
YouTube it. You can YouTube chia.
You can YouTube it, right? But she was of that generation. She knew what chia pet was. So she was just in stitches.
We should get paid for that. Chia. So the reason why I say hair extensions are not damaging is that obviously in the beginning, I had no idea. I don't even think I cared or questioned it. And I was a guy who didn't have friends wearing them or had challenges or problems. I didn't have girlfriends that had extensions when I was younger. So I had no good or bad feelings about extensions. I just saw a few friends as I became a hairdresser doing them, making big money, and thought, I'm chasing the money as a young stylist. I needed to do spray tans, airbrush tans. I need to do, maybe we need to bring tanning beds in here. I had a tanning bed in our salon. Maybe we need to do extensions, hair replacement, just all the things that I thought would bring in more money. And some did, some didn't. And it was just more of a money driven thing for me. And then I started hearing about all the damage. And I was like, what is this fascination with damage and extensions? Then as I started to teach more worldwide, I started to realize some countries don't talk about hair extension damage nearly like the US does. Then I started to realize it was quite a cultural thing in the US to go through the whole damage thing. Other countries had been doing extensions longer than us, but do you know much about the cultural differences and why the U.S. tended to focus and harp on this damage thing more than other countries? Do you know any of that story, or
Yeah, the U.S. It's going to sound a little bit weird. Hair extensions has always been a taboo in the United States compared to other countries, okay? The topic of sex in general is more taboo in the United States than is in any other country. We don't have
accidentally said sex.
No, like it all comes around full circle.
Okay.
It all comes around full circle. The image of beauty, like in the United States, the image of beauty and just the image of health, the image of everything is so micro dissected. It's so dissected at a microscopic level, and everything is trying to be justified. Anything goes type thing. So the second you try to gear towards or move towards any image of beauty standard of any kind, you're going to have a group of people that are going to just lose their minds over it, and they're going to say that's not correct, or that's not acceptable, or that's not fair.
I like where you're going with that in a way, because I've never thought about that playing into it, but it probably does, because the TV commercials back when TV was more popular, they were even more risque
raunchy, risque.
In other cultures. Seeing more of the human body is more accepted in some countries than others. So I was always fascinated how different countries think differently about certain topics. Like, for the most part, we're all human, right? But then we've got cultural differences by skin color, by geographical locations, by religion or no religion. So I always find that so fascinating between humans, why we do or don't do certain things. And I never really thought about the imagery thing coming up. We try to when we advertise on Facebook, sometimes when we advertise a man going from no hair to having hair, the algorithms, they see so much skin on the head, they will consider it. Sometimes they'll just tag it for, I forget what the word is, but they think we're showing nudity.
Oh, it's flagged. It gets flagged for adults.
For showing too much skin kind of thing. Right. And I'm like, that's not nudity. but something about the algorithm will see a lot of skin.
It's so sensitive. It is so sensitive. And it's really sad, because in other cultures, for example, growing up, the women in my family, just to go to the grocery store, got dressed up, because you never knew if you were going to run into somebody else. And God forbid if you did, and you didn't have your face on, if you didn't have dressed up, then on Sunday they were going to talk about you at church. And it's like, of all the places to talk about somebody, you're worried about, the gossip at church. Like, what the hell? But the irony was lost on me as a kid.
So I think because the U.S. is a newer country in the grand scheme of things, there were some things, because extensions go back to the ancient Egyptians and even further.
They do.
And we've talked about that before on this channel, how far back extensions go. And so I think a big part of our country being founded maybe started off more of a simple, like, trying to get life started again kind of thing. So there was a kind of a rebirth, a new beginning, a rebornness kind of in this country, where I think the people here were just trying to survive for the first couple hundred years, And so the wigs that were pretty common in the European culture, like even for the political party, I think that was left behind, because it was like, we don't need that extra heat, that extra stress, that extra dress, we're just trying to live right now. We're barely getting the food covered. And I think that as much as we don't talk about that, I think just this country getting started, newly was a big part of it. And then as we started to develop our own thing, some things might have affected it. But what I noticed just in my short life here on this planet is that the cultural difference of the Black community doing more extensions than the white community when I was a kid. And as I'm growing up in the hair business, and down south even more so, I started to notice that Black girls had extensions more than white girls. And so then the white girls that would come into the salon for me to do extensions on would price me, but then they'd say they're also pricing a local predominantly Black salon. And I knew that the way they did the extensions was different than the way that I did it. And at the time, I was learning a keratin. At first, I did a sewed in weft, and I even got to see some of the struggles. And so I started to see that, which is the common way extensions were done 30, 40 years ago, sewed in really tight. And so that was the big divide for me. I love to see big divides, like where things split. There's this and there's that within the same category. And for me, that's where I started to see the first big divide in damage and no damage, potentially, although there can be both damage and no damage on both sides. But tension versus non-tension was the first great divide, because the sewn in wefts, it was a tight something on the head, whether it was a cornrow braid, a little bitty French braid, a little bitty scalp braid, whatever you wanted to call it. It was a tiny braid, and that thing could be ridiculously tight or loose, but that was kind of tight itself. And the common white girl with blonde hair who was losing her hair over bleach, and she was losing hair because she was getting damage from the chemicals. Now she just got bleached. Now half her hair fell out. She gets that tight braid along her scalp. Her scalp and her hair is not strong enough to hold it. And it gave the medical world a brand new word: traction alopecia.
Traction alopecia, yep.
And I'm not saying that the black girls aren't getting traction alopecia also, because they are. They're getting it from relaxers, burning it off right at the skin from not being rinsed out really well. And some white people with curly hair also. But the extension world, too many white scalps couldn't take that tension, especially after bad chemical jobs. And so then they start right on the ends here where it starts getting pulled out, and you'd have a bald traction, the traction basically meaning pulling, and alopecia meaning baldness, but we're trying to class up the words, just call it hair extension baldness, but pull out baldness, but they're calling it traction alopecia, when all the other alopecias are not really known what causes it. Of course, some people think it's autoimmune. Maybe it's vitamins. Nobody really knows why people lose hair, and it can be diet, stress, and a lot of other things. And that was kind of what the different alopecias, universalis, totalis, areata, and then all of a sudden we come up with one that we know what causes this one. Pulling out of the head, traction alopecia. That track that the hair extension's on is pulling the hair out, so we're going to give it a name and call it traction alopecia. And so I personally have had those clients come to me that had traction alopecia from other salons and from when I used to do it, switched over to a keratin K-tip type bond, she hair extensions. And now the on-stage extension, similar, no tension, put in away from the scalp a little, connected to the hair, away from the scalp a little, gave it that free flow and movement. Although even those can be done wrong and cause pain and damage. But there was less chance, whereas the other one was tight no matter what. Done right.
Right, it's more forgiving in that sense.
Right. Done right or wrong, a weft, if you're sewing it in, and I don't mean sewing it on the beads, like the newer, even the hand tie techniques are much less damaging than the original wefts, where you had a track along the scalp where you're braiding or using fishing string and twisting and tying. That's tight. Then you put a weft on there and sew it and tighten up them knots again and tighten it a little bit more. There's so much pulling and tension, kind of just like a French braid has some tension. You wear it for a day or two. How you let a girl's hair out of a ponytail or a braid, and they're like, oh, it feels so good. Well, can you imagine all these little bitty braids? They're not staying in a day or two. They're staying in for weeks and holding extensions. And some people could take the stress and the pull on the hair that the head would rise to the occasion and hold it, but it wasn't the best option for most people. And so that's where a lot of damage came. And what I was trying to say, I kind of skipped over it, was I personally have brought people back from that. If you lose hair once or twice in an area, it's very common that hair will grow back. It's not, the follicle's not completely damaged. Isn't that the science behind waxing the eyebrows? Pull it till you damage the follicle and it doesn't grow anymore.
So much that it won't grow no more, right?
Right, and you're hoping that for the hair that's right here and underneath and over the top and maybe right here or wherever, or some ladies' lip, they're trying to damage that follicle. That's what electrolysis was all about. So knowing that it will grow back most of the time after a little bit of hair extension damage, and somebody comes to me and we start doing a few little extensions above and below the bald spots and wait for the bald spots to grow back in, then eventually start attaching to that too as the hair starts to strengthen. Well, then I've watched people, and it's funny because it was a good feeling and a bad feeling. Good feeling is I've watched people gain their hair back, put their extensions in and take them out, put them back in for 6 months to a year and a half, grow all their hair back, and then they quit getting extensions, which means I quit making money. But it was also, so that was the bad feeling, quit making the money. But the good feeling was I brought their hair back to where it was, and they were happy. We still have that till this day. To this day, my son, like the model we used in Chicago, she had bald spots from tape-in extensions that were done wrong. And she said, your son, Brennan, has saved my head, saved my hair. She got pictures of showing her short, damaged, broken off hair because it's growing back, and it's just all kind of weird, terrible lengths. She had bald spots and she has it in pictures, but she has no bald spots on her head now. And her hair is coming back slowly, getting thicker and thicker. And she's super happy. Now, overall, she's got finer, thinner hair. So she'll probably never be happy with the thickness of her hair. Thank God for us. We get to keep making money, but she is so happy that she doesn't have to wear as much. Each time they do them, she can wear a little less and a little less. And she might just wear one weft eventually for the fullness and thickness. But her hair is coming back. That's a great feeling. And a great story that we do every year in the salon.
It really, and that's really what it's about more than anything else. A lot of the concerns, especially like you'll see when somebody is going to get hair extensions for the first time, and then you go in and you start cutting their hair, and you're like, wait, why are you cutting my hair off? I thought the extensions are supposed to add more hair. I'm like, yeah, the hair extensions are going to add more hair to you, but we got to blend it together. So before we put this in, I have to, your style is going to change, right? So I'm not taking away any length. I'm only retexturizing the ends of your hair to make it look more blended. And then trying to get that wrapped around their mind is like mind-blowing experiences for them. What I've seen some people do is they'll put the hair extensions in, and then they'll go in and try to start hacking into all the hair and chopping everything up. And then they end up cutting more of the hair extensions that they intended to because they're trying to get to the natural hair inside of it that they've just installed. Maybe. My PSA to everybody is cut the hair first, the natural client's hair first, then put the hair extensions in, cut the hair extensions to where you need it to be, and then recut everything again and merge it together. I actually do 3 haircuts. It's probably over excessive, but I know I'm scissor happy. So I know that I need to treat each thing separately and then bring it all together. So this way I don't start having fun and remembering thinking I'm on stage again or something.
Yeah. So I used to be really scissor happy. I think we go through phases, right? It's like this roller coaster. And I think this would be a really good short clip to pull out of here too, is I know we're talking mostly about damage. And I think that sometimes damage comes from misused other steps and techniques, which is placement and cutting at the right times in the right places. And so what I found when it comes to cutting, we should probably link, God, it's our most watched video ever, is me. They had a girl named Ellie. I used to work in our salon, and I put extensions on her head and cut them. And I came up with the 5 steps because, like you, I used to cut a little too much off. And the step that we use on the very ends of the extensions fixed me of cutting too much hair off the ends. But you're right. And you can't learn this until you make the mistake yourself.
But you make the mistake and have to pay to replace it.
Or smart enough to learn from our mistakes, which is such a rare learning occasion. But for you guys that are out there that will listen, God, listen, watch the hair cutting video that we do and cut the client's hair before the extensions. And when I say cut the hair, I don't mean cut one leg. I mean texturize. And this is where I made the biggest mistake. I had a girl with a super thick bob above, really a little bit above her shoulders. And I just kept putting hair in, and I could never get that line to disappear. And at the end, she thanked me, but said, I don't know what I'm going to do with this. I was freaking out. I'm sweating. I'm a new stylist. Just learned extensions. It must have been close to $2,000 worth of hair. I couldn't get rid of the line. I didn't know how to get rid of the line. And that is when I realized, get rid of the freaking line before you ever put the extensions in. I mean, you don't know that till you screw it up or you hear it from somebody else. And so taking, first of all, maybe not even doing extensions on somebody with super thick hair that's at this length, but you almost have to, first of all, get rid of that thick, heavy shelf and layer it a little bit, right? Maybe, but you've got to texturize the hell out of those ends. You've got to think about it like this. If somebody repairs a paint spot on your car, they do something around those edges called feathering it in. There's just different ways of spraying heavy in the middle and then lightly spraying the edges, or sanding the edges different than you do the middle. So same thing with the haircut. You have to cut it to feather edge it in. And so when a client comes in for a consultation and they have, it's sad to say, but the more tattered, damaged, terrible looking those ends are, the better they blend with extensions. The more rough and uneven they look, when you put good solid hair in there anyway, those tattered ends just disappear if the colors matched well. And so with that being said, sometimes you have to create that before you ever put the extensions in. And so, yes, sometimes the complaints are, why are you cutting my hair before we ever put the extensions in? And I don't say you have to. I just say we should if your extensions are going to look good. But if we don't, that's up to you. I don't even recommend we put them in, but if we do, there'll be a line in there. And the only way to get rid of that line then is curls. And that's why you see so many extension jobs on the internet.
With the beachy waves, the beach waves, the curl.
They're hiding their terrible haircuts, or they don't know how to cut it. They don't know how to blend it. They don't know how to put enough hair to match the thickness in both. So when curly hair is the great forgiver, right? Curls will hide so much. Curls will hide thinness or thickness. They will hide bad color. They will hide bad highlights. They will hide bad haircuts, bad hair extension applications. I have hired so many stylists that are great at highlighting hair, but just mediocre or worse in hair cutting. And they'll say it. I'll do a cutting class, and they're like, I feel like it's so basic, and they're like, "Thank you so much. I learned so much about that." I'm like, what do you mean? They're like, "I don't know if you've noticed," but now I notice. I take notice. Actually, some of the best highlighters and colorists don't cut hair well, and the truth is, most of us don't do everything well. But some people won't admit it, or they hide it, or they still try. Like, you're not going to see me try to do an updo. I just can't. And I did something with some hair the other day. I twisted it and pulled it up and clipped it. And my son goes, "Dad, you said you don't do updos."
That counts as an updo. Now you have the one twist.
I think after 30 something years of doing hair, there's a couple little things you pick up where it might look like I could probably do an updo at this point, but not like most people. And it's definitely not worth money. So no, I'm not doing it. I'm just not doing it. So yeah, I'm with you. You got to texturize those ends a lot.
You got to texturize those ends a lot. Another thing, what I get asked is, when it comes to does hair extensions cause damage, or how damaging is it going to be? My response is always this. I said, it depends, because hair extensions themselves are not damaging, but you are. And they're like, what? And they're like, what?
Right.
Oh, I never say you might be. I always tell the person you are the damage that causes hair extensions damage, not the hair or the problem. And they're always like, what are you talking about? I go, listen, do you own a brush? Do you brush your hair? And you'd be surprised how many people will say no. Not no, they don't own a brush. No, they don't regularly style their hair.
Mess it up. Well, like I've always said, this category, this topic to me, because of course I sell and you sell hair extensions. And so between us selling hair, selling education, doing the teaching, I have found, just kind of through experience again, that the problem, I usually know where the problem is, but I realize they don't think they're the problem, because a lot of times it's the hairdresser. It's not you, because you got a lot of experience. But when it comes to us having to deal with, I was going to say me, but it's us having to deal with both the client and the hairdresser, I started to realize, well, you know what? The problem is in one of three major areas. And so I always called it a three-legged stool. I mean, it's gotta, the problem is going to fall on either the company, the quality of the hair, where the hair's coming from, how good the hair is. So the hair itself, the hairdresser, or the client, right? It's going to be one of those three things is going to be the problem. And I like to point that out when hairdressers call me and say, there's something wrong with your hair.
It's always. I think I got a bad batch.
It's all falling out. Right. And so I sold hair to 100 different stylists this week, and just yours is falling out.
No, even better.
Well, they don't think about that. They don't think that.
But they put in 2 different colors, 2 different lengths, or 2 different densities, and no, all of it is wrong. All of it is bad.
Well, that's my point. I mean, first of all, it's usually not us. I'm not saying we are beyond reproach. You know, I'm not saying that our company never makes any mistakes. And sometimes it happens and it's like one color, like 5 people call within a few days, this color's fading or falling out. It's like, yep, we are like the first 1 or 2, sure. You're like, it's probably you. Second one, that's weird. It's probably you or the client. Third one, you're like, what the hell's going on in here, guys?
You're right. Pull all the hair. We need to take a look at all the hair. What is happening?
Pull all the color number 5 off the shelf. Open a few packs. Let me see what's going on. Oh my God, the hair's just falling right out. You know, that happens I don't know, and not that often.
Once every 20 years. Wow. Because look, in the past 20 years, Bernard, only 2 colors have gotten discontinued. And those 2 colors, when I say discontinued, like they're not even made anymore. That's how serious the quality control is.
But also there's been with Pink Hair for Hope, there was a big push for like,
that was one of the colors.
We don't have enough pink hair to supply everybody. And I think that it might've been rushed at the factory to try to get it done. So the pink hair was fading fast. Yeah, we acknowledge that. Whoops, sorry. We're trying to help this trend, this whole thing, and trying to do
the charity, yeah,
trying to do a good thing, and then we end up getting a bad thing out of it because we try to move too fast and please too many too fast, and it probably wasn't worth it. I don't know, was it more good or more bad? But so with that being said, we deal with you can buy low end hair too, low quality, low end, cheap hair, and have lots of problems. But we choose to work with a high end, very expensive, very high quality, and I wouldn't say we're super expensive. We're right up there with other high quality hair, right? A little more than some, a little less than others. But when you buy high quality hair, it's about a certain price. But with that being said, for the most part, we like good hair because even if I use hair, before I sold hair, I bought expensive hair because I didn't want to deal with the low quality, low price hair problems that were out there. So next is the client and the hairdresser. So I try to perfect the hairdresser's technique first, right? But we know we cannot control the clients. We just can't control the clients. I mean, for the most part, they're okay. But if they're new, they don't know how to work with it. They brush too hard, they flat iron too much, they shampoo too often, or they don't brush at all, like you just said. But my first go-to is to try to fix the hairdresser because I feel like that is the relationship I have. If I have a relationship with my client, and I know I'm doing a good job, which I've screwed up a couple times through the years too. You know, I cut the keratin too short on a couple of people and all the hair fell out. And that cost me a fortune to reach twice in my career. But I was testing the limits. How short can I cut it? How short can I cut it? And I didn't test it on 1 or 2. I went ahead and tested it on 150 strands, you know. So that test was a big fail. And I replaced the hair for that girl. Took it out for free, bought the hair on my own money, ended up breaking even. Hopefully I upcharged enough that I used all my profit to redo her hair and a whole nother half a day's work when I was doing K-tips. But often now that I sell and teach, I can deal with the hairdresser themselves. And I just had a girl call me the other day, and it was interesting because I don't usually deal with the client, but her situation was unique. She called up the office. I called her back. She goes, "Thank you so much for calling me." I said, "So I'm a little confused. Are you the hairdresser or the client?" She said, "Both." So I am a hairdresser thinking about using or selling and doing you guys' hair, but I had another local hairdresser put your hair on my head.
Okay.
And it's not going so well. And so I was like, well, thank you for digging a little deeper and trying to figure out what the problem might be. She said, well, I've seen your videos and I've heard such good things about your hair. I have 2 wefts and some of the strands on my head, and about 6 strands have fallen out. What do you think it is? Like, I can just, the funny thing is I kind of do know what it is, but I'm thinking, well, you have videos? Because how am I supposed to just know magically what happened over there? And so I kind of explained to her the 3-legged stool thing. If any one of these legs is not good, the whole stool's falling down, whether it's the client, the hairdresser, or the company. And so I said, we sell a lot of hair. We're not having this problem right now. When did this happen? A few weeks ago. It's just a few of the strands. They just opening up. The strand itself is opening up. The bead's still in the hair, and it's just coming around it. I said, well, let me just cover you first. It could be tugged on really hard, and your scalp might be strong enough to hold your hair in, but you might, because you got the bead and then you got the ring of hair, you might just be pulling that hair that's coming around the ring so hard that you're just forcing it open and it's breaking. And she goes, oh, I don't think it's me though. I'm pretty gentle. I said, that's fine. I understand, but I'm just saying that's one of the places where it could be you. But the other thing is, if your stylist used to do K-tips or keratin tips, she goes, she did. I said, isn't it funny how I do know the common problems? I said, well, keratin tip users are used to tapping that tool, the heat. They're trying to control the heat. So they start to heat it and then they open it and they tap it a few times. Well, when they go to do these on-stage extensions, they think that squeezing, which is like just chewing the bead up, is going to, I don't know, make it better because they're just going to squeeze it. But really, they're just destroy. That's like a removal technique, and not our removal technique, but a K-tip removal technique. And they're squeezing the bead and they're squeezing the ring and a little of both. And they're just they're chewing that bead up and making it where it's not going to hold very well. But they might also be, and she goes, that's exactly what she's doing. I was watching her do it. She was squeezing the tool multiple times on the same bead. I said, and she's not hitting the bead every time. I can promise you that, because she just all over the place. And so she's destroying the ring. Now, we have had some inventory where a couple of rings did get pulled over. It's never been a whole pack of hair. And I often wonder, like, I guess it could be a manufacturing problem every once in a while where a couple don't get sealed as well, because it's a weft that's cut in sections and brought around and sewed and glued together. And I guess that could break open, but it's machines doing it. So it's rare that there's going to be a mess up, because it's very consistent, So if a few do that, we replace the hair, no problem. We'll replace a pack of hair and move on. But I know that it's usually application. Sometimes the client pulling too hard on it. I said, so there's a couple things. If she's pulling the hair straight out towards her and then squeezing it and then letting it go, it's like it's going to buckle up, and it's almost like wearing a high ponytail. And then you're trying to pull it down low. The hair is going to pull from the top of the section and buckle on the bottom of the section. And so very few hairs in that section are going to support the weight of it, whether it's a K-tip or an I-tip or a on-stage beaded extension. And that's going to cause some tension and pulling and could break some hairs off. And she goes, no, not breaking any hairs off. The beads are still in. I was like, oh. So see, yeah, I know if there's enough hair pulled through the bead, pull down, a natural fall in the right direction, and then the bead is centered in the tool correctly with the line sideways and not some weird angle, and then squeezed very well, it's staying in for 6 to 8 weeks, because we do them all the time in our own salon. And so then I'll ask somebody for a video, like I did this morning by text. She's complaining, Bernard, I'd really like an answer to my a comment to my last mile-long text. I'm thinking, well, it was a comment. It wasn't a question, first of all. But yeah, I'm looking at your ridiculously long text. And about 2 months ago, I asked you for a video showing me you putting a couple of beads in so that I can talk more intelligently about what's going on. She hasn't sent a video, because that's where I see it. That's where I can see and help.
Right.
If they show me a video with them putting 2 beads in, put a bead in, put the tool down, section there, grab it, put the bead in, except for how hard the squeeze is. Sometimes I can see, because it's just like that. And I'm like, ooh, I don't think there was enough squeeze on that tool, But other than that, I can see if there's enough hair. I can see if the direction's right. I can see if the hand positioning's right. And I can usually help them do a better technique. And I do that many, many times each month. But the few that won't send a video, I can't help you. if you can't send a video, I can't help you. Good luck. What can I do?
It's because here's the thing. It's you're playing a game of operator. It's what the client, a lot of the times when I get a phone call from a stylist, they are trying to describe to me what a client has described to them.
Right.
So a lot of the times I'll listen and listen and listen and listen and listen. And if it sounds a little absurd, usually my initial response is, okay, so when this is everything you're describing from the client side of things. When the client came in and you looked at it and you reevaluated it, what is your opinion of it? Because, well, I haven't seen the client. Not only have I not seen the client, this is all over a text message. I got the client is texting me. So they haven't even verbally spoken with the client yet either. So you got one text or two texts, and you're basing everything off of this one or two texts without trying to figure out any additional infos. You haven't physically seen it. So we're just playing operator at this point.
Right.
In your mind, you're trying to figure out what it is, and you're trying to justify and explain that. And now you want me to try to justify and explain what you think, what she's saying, what she thinks she's saying, because she has no idea what she's saying. She's the client.
Here's a real example that happens so often. My extensions are falling out. My extensions are falling out. Something is wrong. You need to send me money or hair right now. What do you
I need a redo or a refund. That's it.
Yeah. And then when you get down to the bottom of it, like this last one I just dealt with, there was two wefts, two 12-inch wefts that go all the way around the head put in, and 25 strands. And at the end of the day, she didn't say she wanted a refund or all done, but the text was, my extensions are falling out. And so when it got to the end of it, it's like exactly what fell out. The wefts are doing great. The strands, 6 of them came out. Well, that's not really, it shouldn't be 6, but that is not as big as a deal. In my head, I thought, it's all gone. God bless you. Yeah. So in my head, I'm thinking, oh man, they're all coming out. It wasn't all. It was a small, in the grand scheme of the extension job, it's like a very small percentage of the problem that could be easily fixed. And the coolest thing about the on-stage hair extensions is in most cases, you just put a new bead on there, put it on the loop, and put it right back in. Because most of the time it's the bead wasn't squeezed well enough and it slipped out, or it didn't have enough hair in there. And God forbid they didn't attach to enough hair and the client's hair broke off. You can still reuse the extensions. Even broken hair, there's still some hair there to attach to. And that's where some people with damaged hair will think they can't have extensions. Well, you know what? Most of the time, hairdressers don't think about the small technical thing most of the time. When hair is damaged, by the time you put extensions in, by the time somebody's done crying, whining, complaining, and over the damage, hair is growing. It's growing whether you're complaining or not. And hair grows about 1/2 inch a month. And that's about where we connect extensions, right? So worst case scenario, we might need you to wait another week or two. No, I should say worst case is 4 weeks, 6 weeks maybe. But most of the time it's been a week or 2 or 3 of you trying to figure out what you're going to do about this problem. And so most of the time your roots have grown out enough while you're using your masks and repairs and trying to fix your hair and putting gloss color on, and it did no good. And so then, did you catch that? And then gloss color, and it didn't actually do anything.
So I caught you.
And then at the scalp, you've got brand new, strong hair that you can connect extensions to. But the rest of it is like falling out on the black shirt. You got little white hairs because the ends are breaking off there. Look, her hair's breaking off. We can't put extensions on her. Yes, you can. You can. We're not attaching extensions to those fried ends. We're attaching the extensions to the very strong hair right near her scalp.
The new growth area, right.
New growth. If that is strong enough to hold extensions, we can put extensions in and make her hair look really good. The other biggest problem I find with extensions, that I know this is not the time and place necessarily, but we kind of covered a few aspects of extensions, is placement, where it's put. Most people put them like right here. And they don't know why all this hair over the top looks like looks like a shelf or a mushroom on top of the long hair. I can't understand why my hair extensions don't look good. Well, you have hair growing out the top of your head too. Maybe you need extensions coming out the top of your head also. So that, of course, is helped out with placement and cut and color matching. But I think that's all for another day, maybe.
Yeah.
Woo!
Well, then here's some advice. So let's wrap it up with some advice. If you are the client watching this, and then if you are the stylist watching this, if you are the client watching this, do not expect something ordered off of Amazon to be any good. Expect it to last for about a month.
A day.
And so you either have some temporary event you're going on a quick trip, you're I don't know, it's summer break or something, for a very short amount of time, you want to do something fun.
And it should probably be a wig, a hairpiece, or clip-ins.
Right. If you're getting a bundle, if you're getting 200 pieces of hair, or if you're getting a big, like 2-3 wefts for $200, please understand that that is not
human. It might not even be human, even if they say
right. And if it is, it's very low quality. It's leftover human hair, or it's floor hair. So it's only going to last less than 3 months or 6 months. It's not going to last for a year or longer. Do not expect that long of a wear and tear. Keep your expectations in check. Now, if you are willing to spend the monies, then that's fine. You need to do your homework 2 different ways. You need to discover if the stylist you're going to see personally has the ability, like you believe during the consultation. Go get a consult. Talk with the stylist. Have a conversation with the stylist. Do you feel like the way they're explaining it to you makes sense and they sound confident?
And ask for references and testimonials from their other clients that are happy.
Right? And then the product that they're using, do they just have one product, or do they have multiple products that they can draw from? Because your type of hair may or may not match up to the one technique they have. And if they only use one technique, that's okay. I'm not saying that's bad. Make sure that one technique works for your type of hair. Too many times I've seen it. Now, okay, so now to the stylist that's watching this.
Yes.
Too many times we've tried to force every single client into our one thing. Be respectful of what the client is asking for and discover if that's really if the technique you use is going to match. And if you don't feel 100% convinced or confident with it, then understand that it is okay to pass that up. Right. Have a relationship with another stylist in the area who does a technique that you don't do, and share and swap with each other, and that's okay. The only way one technique works for every single type of hair is dependent on the amount of work that the client is willing to do to maintain it if their hair doesn't match that type, okay? Can you trust and can you believe and can you guarantee that the client 100% every single day is going to spend the additional time and effort to maintain that hair the way it needs to be maintained? No, it's impossible. It's impossible. So just say no.
Just say no.
That's my advice to how to avoid damage from a client side and from a stylist side. Have those regular follow-up visits. Have those regular conversations with somebody too. You need, so we talk about this all the time. If you're doing cut and color services, if you're doing normal salon services, you only need 160 clients to fill a book. Right. But if you're doing hair extensions,
3.
You right? You can keep yourself fully busy with a handful of clients and produce the same amount of income. You don't need a full book like you do with regular services.
Right, 30 clients.
So spend time and effort on those.
I'm thinking 1 a day for 6 weeks, 5 a week, 5, 10 videos.
I'm telling you, it's beautiful.
Yeah, 30 extension clients and you're set. Yeah, I've never really thought about it like that. 60 would be great. I can do 2 a day. 60, I'd be rich. 30,
You'd be rich. If you were able to do 2 a day, you would be rolling in those. You'd be rolling in the money.
and still only
Right.
working a day.
And still only working a half a day as it goes. So what advice can you give? Or is that pretty covered?
No, that's it. That's good. I told you I ran out right before you started talking.
All right. Well, that's our advice. That's our outlook on it, or that's our viewpoints from it. Let us know what you think. Do you have extra questions from everything we've spoken about? Do you have anything to add to what we've spoken about? We love the comments. We always read the comments, and we always try to respond. We appreciate all of you watching. If you think this will help somebody else, let them know to come and listen to this as well, too.
Yeah, share this video. Look at you begging for shares. And
I ain't begging for shares. I'm doing a public service announcement to try to help other people from not going through this pains of what we're talking about. Subscribe twice, right? Hit the button twice or whatever.
Hang up. Thank you,
all right.
Guys.
We'll catch y'all next week. Thanks for watching.